imagine going to the doctor and the doctor says, to you that there's nothing found after 3 years of, tests and different forms, treatment and medication. And all of a sudden, they don't see anything. Imagine, how that feels. So I want to give you guys an update today, of what happened with me this past week. But before I do that, let me talk about embracing the fight. Welcome to Embracing the Fight. My name is Erica Lamar. I am the digital creator and host for Embracing the Fight. And I started this podcast back in January of 2023 after I was diagnosed in 22 with thyroid cancer. And I have had several guests to come on and share their different stories with different illnesses, diseases. They've had all kinds of testimonies, things that will reach millions for years to come. And I'm just grateful that they felt safe enough to come and share their message. And that's what Embracing the Fight is all about. It's all about being able to normalize the conversations surrounding physical and mental health issues and concerns. So, with that being said, if you would like to be on Embracing the Fight, just comment below. And if you don't want to comment below, I'm everywhere on social media as Embracing the Fight. I'm on Facebook. Instagram, it's just Embracing the Fight _. I'm on X, Blue Sky, and let's see, Facebook, YouTube. All right. Embracing the Fight. And now that I've gotten the business of everything out of the way. Oh, one other thing. If you want to email me any questions or you want to ask me anything, my email is operations@diversitydesigned.com. Now, today's episode is nothing but updates. And I am so excited because I was initially, a little sour because on Monday, I was supposed to go in and have a fine needle aspiration biopsy. Now, the reason that I was having this fine needle aspiration biopsy was because my tumor marker numbers were continuing to rise. And basically, my endocrinologist explained that when your tumor markers are rising, it's showing that either the cancer is spreading or it's somewhere, else, in my body. Not that it spread like to the bones, to the lungs, or anything like that, but say it went somewhere else and it shows up somewhere else. So they initially said, Erica, we're going to have to do a lateral neck dissection. And I was like, oh, goodness, because lateral neck dissection, is literally when they cut you here because you have lymph nodes here and there that they were really, concerned with. So initially she sent me in, to have an ultrasound. And that ultrasound is what led her to believe I needed a lateral neck dissection. So the first radiologist notes basically said that I had suspicious lymph nodes. So before they did the lateral neck dissection, my surgeon, and like I said, I just love my surgeon because she has the cutest little hands and she's very smart. And as you can see, that scar that I had from the first surgery, you can't even see it. It's not, I mean, it's almost like it's not, even there. But when I went to see her, she was like, oh wow, the scar healed, almost perfectly. It just looks like, a regular line, in your skin, a regular fold or whatever. And I was like, yeah, okay. It looked good to me. And then I started saying, well, if I get a neck dissection, it's not gonna, look as good and this, that, and other. And I was like, but you know what? I honestly don't care about that. I just want to be, cancer free. So she looked at my neck and she was like, you actually do, have lines that I could go along there as well. And if they come back as thin as this did, it's going to look, virtually the same. Now it's not going to look like that the first maybe month or two or maybe year, whatever. But either way, she was like, after looking at the ultrasound that they sent over, she wanted to do an additional ultrasound. So she did it. And when she did it, she was like, I'm not really happy with these lower lymph nodes because they're rounded and they look suspicious for something. So she said, we're gonna have to check that out. So I'm sitting here like, oh goodness. So since she thinks something is suspicious, they're just gonna go ahead and cut them out, get them out of there. And she was like, no, I'll send you for a fine needle aspiration biopsy. And see, I had had one of those before. So I was like, oh, that was kind of cool because, I'm laying there and he has the ultrasound going as he, had the needle going in, getting the sample, and I could see it on the screen, when they were initially doing my thyroid. So that was pretty cool to me because, I'm a STEM or scientific, nerd. I love that kind of stuff. Well, anyway, this time when I went in, I was supposed to be there at like 10 o'clock. So I got there around 9:50, went checked in, and the lady who checked me in, her name is Carolyn, and everybody knows I love Carolyn's because my mom's name is Carolyn. But anyway, I'm sitting there and there's like no exaggeration, there's like maybe 10 or 15 people that come in behind me. And all of these people go through, right? They surgery, whatever they got, they going through. Everybody just going, going, going. So then Miss Carolyn gets up and tells me, oh, well, the case before yours, just canceled. So it shouldn't be, very long. So I'm like, okay, cool. And then next thing I know, I'm looking down, it's like 11:30, 11:35, somewhere in there. And she comes back over and she says, well, I had to find out, why you still sitting here because you should have gone back by now. So then she checks and the office manager basically tells her that there was an issue with my insurance authorization. And that part I still don't understand because the office manager is the one who calls you that says this is the portion that you have to pay, with the type of insurance that you have. Your procedure has been authorized. So here's the link to pay, for the procedure. So they emailed me that. Then I got a call about it. And then I went ahead and I paid it, right? So if I paid that and it went through, that means, it should have been authorized. I could be wrong, could be something I'm missing here, but I'm really thinking that it should have been authorized and it should have been ready to go, but apparently it wasn't. So at about 11:45, nurse comes out and she gets me and she's all, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, well, what was going on? What was the deal? And she was like, oh, no one told you anything? And I said, the lady who was outside, she told me that she talked to, the office manager and they told her, what was going on. And the nurse was like, again, the office manager didn't say anything to you. I said, nope, not a word. Didn't come out, didn't say anything at all. So she was like, there's always, times where there's issues with insurance. You're not the only one. And I hate to be like, well, ma'am, you know what? It doesn't matter that I'm not the only one. It matters that I'm the one that who's who's having to sit here all the time and I'm starving. Because first they told me that I could eat, a light breakfast before because it was just, fine needle aspiration biopsy, right? But then the next lady that called was like, no, you can't eat or drink anything past midnight except for a swallow of water with your medication, but you need to do that before 8 a.m. So I hadn't eaten since 8 o'clock the day before. So 8 p.m. because I knew it was going to be, well, maybe, I'll get out of here early and I won't be starving. No. 8 o'clock p.m. to like 11:45, right? So at 11:45, I'm back there. They give me these little what do they call their antiseptic wipes, and you have to wipe like from here down, but you can't put it on your face and you can't like put it in your groin area. You clean it everywhere else, right? Then you dispose of those things, you put your gown on, and then you wait. So I did that, and then I hear knock at the door, and I say, 1 second. And then I turned a little, because the lady tells me to open the blinds. So there's a little knob, you twist the blinds. So I twist the blinds and there's nobody there. So then I fall asleep. Mind you, it's about 12 o'clock at this time when I fall asleep. I wake up. This nurse comes in there and she's checking all my information. She's putting the band on my arm and she's explaining, that she's a nurse and she's going to be there and all this different stuff and whatever. She goes away. 1 o'clock comes, nobody. 1:15, nobody. 1:30. This young man comes in there and he's, hey, how you doing? How's everything going? I said, I'm starving. He says, well, why are you starving? I said, because they told me not to eat anything past midnight, yesterday, and I couldn't have anything but water and medicine, this morning. And he was just like, no, you could have eaten breakfast, if you wanted to. He was like, ooh, but I didn't tell you that. He was like, I don't know why they told you that, but oh, and I just kind of laughed because I thought it was funny. He's like, I was thinking what he was thinking because I felt the same way since it was a fine needle aspiration biopsy. That sort of thing should not make you nauseous. You're not getting any anesthesia or anything like that that's going to, cause you to potentially, aspirate or anything like that. So the things didn't match. Nothing matched, at this point. So then he's like trying to push me out in the on my little bed. He was like, hey, it's gonna be faster if you get in a wheelchair. I was like, wheelchair it is. So then he gets a wheelchair, he's pushing me down the hallway. And then once we get to the room, he's like, okay, you can get on this table. So I get on the table, and then the radiology tech comes over and she's talking to me and telling me, what's going to happen. And I told her, okay, yeah. And she said, you've had one before. And I was like, yes, I have. And she was like, well, I had this young lady here who's a student and I'm trying to teach her, what to look for on the screen. So she tells the young lady to get the report. They both look at the report together, and then she starts putting a warm gel on, and she's, just rolling ultrasound, and they're looking at the screen. See, I can't see because she tells me to turn my head to the left, and they're looking at the right side. Then they have me lean my head, all the way back, like how they kind of lean you down on the table so they can try to see what's going on a little bit better. And then she's going around and going around. So then she asks the young lady, and she says, well, what do you see? The girl was like, I don't see nothing. so so she was like, you don't see nothing. She's like, well, ma'am, we're not talking about your condition or anything. She's just saying the graininess of the screen. She can't really, differentiate between, the organs. I was just like, whatever. In my heart and in my mind, I had already said, I am healed. That was confirmed, for me before I even came in here. But anyway, I was laying there. She was just rubbing and rubbing and rubbing and rubbing and rubbing. I mean, she said, well, what did they tell you? And I said, well, they told me it was two, near the lower part of my neck, that looked suspicious. I said, but the two, that were up higher, that she was checking those as well, but she didn't really say, what it was. So then they're looking at the map and the margins and all this stuff. And they're like, okay, let's call the radiologist. So the young man goes and he gets the radiologist. He comes back and he's looking and he's like, He was like, well, you do know, he's saying this to the technician, that when it comes to lymph nodes, it's harder, to see them using an ultrasound. So he was like, I'm not exactly sure, what they saw. He said, I'm not discounting what they thought they saw. He was like, but the only thing that I see in this, on the screen is that you have like a very defined muscle, on that side of your neck. And the lymph nodes, he's like, ah, I really don't see anything. And he said, and I would hate to sit here and just poke you, stick you with this needle, searching for something that may or may not be there. He said, so wait a couple of days, reach out to your doctors, explain to them what's happened here, and request a CT scan or MRI. So then in my mind, like I said, I'm saying if he don't see anything at all and he's looking at it, he's a radiologist, he looks at this stuff every day, even though he said it's not the best, method to look at it, he didn't even see anything that truly looked like suspicious to him. So that said two things to me. They said, one, my surgeon and the ultrasound people saw something. They did. They truly did. And then the second thing is that God answers prayer. Because I prayed that between the time that I had the first ultrasound to the time that I was going to have the fine needle aspiration biopsy, that there would be nothing for them to find. Not because, I think I'm above, having surgery or doing any of these things, but I was like, Lord, by your stripes, I am healed. I was like, I'm trying to live this life that is holy and acceptable to you. And Father, every day, if I constantly go out and tell people of your goodness, and they constantly see nothing but, the pain that I'm going through, what would make them want to come to you other than my smile? It's like, God, I need a testimony. Lord, I need to be able to tell, of your goodness and your grace for the things that you've done for me. Because think about it, the past 2 years, 3 years almost, I've dealt, with thyroid cancer and the ups and downs of it. But my faith in God has never wavered. My smile has never wavered. The encouragement, the joy has never wavered because I trust in God. I know that He is my Savior. I know that He is my healer. But I was like, Lord, I just need this to show others, to bring them closer to you. So at this point, I trust and believe that I am healed. So the CT scan and the MRI would just be confirmation for them. And another part of me is saying, well, the lab results. I feel like the last time I took some lab results, it was like, well, this is a separate occasion where I was trying to figure out, my fertility level because I was like, I want to have kids, I want to do this, want to do that. And they told me that the estradiol number that I had suggested that I was in menopause, almost on the other side of it. Well, went back, took the test again, and the estradiol was so high that it was at the level of someone in their late 20s, early 30s, where your fertility is pretty high. And the difference was someone left the sample out too long. So when they let that sample out, it skewed the results. So my question is, did someone leave the sample out this time? Or it was right, but the next time I take it, or the next time I have labs done, I can tell you even more about the miracles and the goodness of God because this is what it said and this is what it says now. Because honestly, I don't feel bad. I don't feel tired. I don't, have the issues that I was having. I was having brain fog. I was having a lot of different things, but this is the most normal that I have felt in a very long time. And I am grateful. I am thankful, for God just giving me some relief, for taking a moment to look at me and say, you know what, you're my child and I love you. And I'm going to take some of this away from you. Now, has everything in my life gone back to being perfect or being great or being good? No, it hasn't. But it's life. I mean, I have to keep living. I have to keep going. I have to keep moving because my purpose is so much greater than the pitfalls and the issues that I have in my life. I have to charge forward to get whatever that is fixed or corrected or done, so God can get the glory. So, what is it that you have going on in your life right now that you thinking, oh, this is the worst thing ever, and I don't know how I'm gonna get past this? Or did you lose your job? Did you lose a close family member? Were you in an accident? Have you changed physically? Have you lost all of your money? The negative things has there been anything that has totally shifted your life? I mean, totally off the rails. If it is, I implore you to pray and trust God. Once you pray and get it out, let him handle it because he will definitely do it. Okay, so now let's go back. So at this point now, I am in, the on the table, and they tell me, okay, you need to, set up all this stuff, set up these CT scans, call, your doctor later on, whatever. So then I go and I put my clothes back on, and then they're leading me out. Well, the young man is leading me out. He's like, well, you remember where you parked? I was like, there's a sign above the door that says like surgery and endoscopy, and then there's a like information desk. And I said, I went straight out that door. So then he was walking, he was like, wait, that's on the other side. And when was walking, I was like, no, this is it right here. I said, because I parked over here in the main parking lot. He was like, okay. So I went on out. And when I got in the car, I tried to go live on Facebook to tell people about the goodness and the joy of God. You can go on my Facebook page, my personal Facebook page, and you can see where I'm trying to tell a story, and it keeps cutting out. I say that is the work of the enemy because he didn't want me to share the joy and the goodness of God. So what I did was I had to record it a little bit later. And a lot of people missed it because I had a bunch of people reaching out saying, how did it go? What happened? This, that, and other. And I had to explain to them. And then I thought about it. I said, you know what? The reason that it didn't go through is because this would have changed so many minds and so many hearts and so many people at that moment, because they would have seen the goodness of God in action. So whenever you have the opportunity to share the goodness of God, if it doesn't happen right away, that doesn't matter. What matters is that you get to share it. And I know, people like to hear stuff when it's hot off the presses, but that information still can last for years. It can help generations to come to believe. So whatever testimony you have, share. It doesn't matter if it happened to you 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, last week. Whenever it happened, it was God's goodness in action. We start sharing more of that stuff rather than people, fighting on social media or this hypersexual stuff. I mean, do you know how many lives would get changed by just saying, God brought me through by his stripes, I am healed, or God made a way. Think about it. Rather than seeing cats and dogs fighting, people shooting snakes and doing all kind of crazy stuff on social media, imagine if you were to hear a testimony every day on the goodness of God. Lives would change. Perspectives would change. People would change. Imagine how it could truly impact the world that we live in. So that's really, the end of my update at this point, because I know I'm going to have to go back and do some more labs, and I'm going to have to set up a CT scan and MRI. But the other thing, I'm going to need to find out where the rest of my money went, because they didn't do the fine needle aspiration biopsy. I know they did the ultrasound. You got to pay for that. Whatever. I didn't need the biopsy. And I am grateful and I am thankful to God for all of that. But for everything that comes in the very near future, just know that I will be sharing about it on Embracing the Fight. And like I said, if you have a testimony, if you want to share, if you want to bring your whole family and we just do a full session about the goodness of God, I am here for it, because there is nothing greater than God's love. All right. So thank you all for taking a moment out to watch this episode of Embracing the Fight, my updates, because I am just overwhelmed and overjoyed of knowing and saying that I am healed. And I know that God has healed me. And I just couldn't wait to share it with you all. All right. So thanks again for watching. You all have an absolutely amazing day.